What are we seeing?
Here we are. Right now, we are seeing an 80% probability of Trump winning the Electoral College. And take a look at what we're seeing here. North Carolina, we do not see any path barring a major shift in the polling at this hour for Kamala Harris. And Georgia remains tight, but the outlying areas solid red, and we're seeing an uptick in the percentages into the low 60s for the outlying counties, which are balancing very blue Atlanta and Fulton County. But we see that. Pennsylvania, we are seeing it approaching a 4-point spread in VT Analytics. Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Georgia. If those go as we are currently projecting, the night would be over for Kamala Harris, and here's why. These three without Arizona is 270. That's the ball game. Even if she was to win Michigan, Wisconsin, Arizona, and Nevada at that point, with the rest that are projected very solidly in blue and red through the West, the Electoral College math will simply be at least 270 for Donald Trump. So, and with the election little under 5 weeks from today, that's what we see.
This is uncharted territory for Donald Trump. He's never held the lead so comfortably at this point of a presidential election, which makes sense as to what Vice President Kamala Harris has been doing as of late. Even with calamities hitting the nation, she is clearly on a mission to reach out to more voters, especially those who may still be undecided at this point. This is the price that they pay for keeping her hidden from the public for way too long. They thought that the mainstream liberal media propaganda was enough to kind of get her across the finish line. However, we see that voters are now focusing on what really matters. Who is the leader that can get us out of these multiple issues? I don't think that many people believe that the person for the job is President Joe Biden, especially when you take into consideration his catastrophic approval rating. So now Harris has to try to distance herself from him. But here's what she had to say when she was asked about their differences. And guys, before we get started, I just want to say thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you for hitting the like button and subscribing. Let's jump in.
Polling shows that a lot of people, especially independent voters, really want this to be a change election, and that they tend to break for you in terms of thinking about change. You are a member of the President administration. Under a Harris administration, what would the major changes be, and what would stay the same?
Sure. Well, I mean, I'm obviously not Joe Biden.
I noticed.
And so that would be one change in terms of, but also I think it's important to say with 28 days to go, I'm not Donald Trump. And so when we think about the significance of what this next generation of leadership looks like, were I to be elected president, it is about, frankly, I love the American people, and I believe in our country. I love that it is our character and nature to be an ambitious people. We have aspirations, we have dreams, we have incredible work ethic, and I just believe that we can create and build upon the success we've achieved in a way that we continue to grow opportunity, and in that way grow the strength of our nation.
It's kind of like she's reading off of a Hallmark card, right? I was worried there for a second that she was going to talk about the significance of the passage of time and how insulting it is to our intelligence that her only difference to Joe Biden is that they don't have the same name, that they're not the same person. And what does it matter if she's not Trump? Biden and Donald Trump are obviously two different people. We don't need her to point that out for us, with policies that are extremely opposite of each other. It's also worth noting that Kamala Harris did do a lot of her cackling in this episode. But here is Megyn Kelly breaking it down for us.
The return of the cackle.
Text stop to quit. I'm sorry. Because I can't just be giving a drink to the vice president of my life. There you go.
Oh my God. I know it's a late night show. I don't know if this is sexist. I'm trying to figure out whether I'd be saying this if it were a male. I think I would. But there's also the image of the first potential female president trying to maintain your image, or in her case, build it, of a serious person who is, yes, you can laugh here or there, you can have a good time, but not to come across as a giggling, cackling schoolgirl. Now,
I should also note that they talked about the hurricane and people struggling during this interview. And while it's okay to laugh it up every now and then, Kamala Harris decided to unleash another new accent as she talked about Hurricane Helene.
And it's crude. Have empathy, man. For the suffering of other people. Have you no sense of purpose if you purport to be a leader, to understand that being a leader means lifting people up in a time of need?
You could literally hear her change back to her normal tone after that. Now, you would think that Stephen Colbert's team would actually edit that out, much like CBS did it for her when they asked her about her foreign policy. When you look at the difference in the clips, you would realize how hard they're trying to make her look competent.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
Well, Bill, the work that we have done has resulted in a number of movements in that region by Israel that were very much prompted by or a result of many things, including our advocacy for what needs to happen in the region.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
We're not going to stop pursuing what is necessary for the United States to be clear about where we stand on the need for this war to end.
Would you ever trust mainstream liberal media ever again? Especially when you find out that they're switching things up like this on the fly? Now, we're getting closer and closer to the presidential election. There are a few issues that may change the course of our nation for good. There's the economy, there's immigration, there's democracy, there's abortion, and of course, conflicts overseas. Now, in terms of the economy and immigration, Donald Trump is easily winning in Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Now, in terms of democracy and abortion, Kamala Harris holds the lead, thanks in part to how they've smeared Donald Trump with January 6th. Now, when it comes to conflict in the Middle East, Donald Trump again takes a commanding lead in all three states. He also has a comfortable lead when it comes to the question of being the commander-in-chief of our military. All of this is great news for the Trump campaign. It's also a reason as to why Kamala Harris is being pressured to show up to these friendly shows. But her and Trump are not cut from the same cloth. She's not holding up to the pressure, and it's only a matter of time until she eventually breaks. Now, I'm not really sure if I could show this clip, but I kind of feel as if it's perfectly encapsulating Kamala Harris's term as vice president perfectly.
I, Kamala Harris, am heartbroken by the hurricane. It breaks my heart. My heart is heartbroken. So to help the victims of the hurricane, I'll be sending another $600 million to Ukraine. That way, you can feel safe knowing you're making a difference to people in need.
Oh, tell them about our immigration policy.
What's that?
Tell them about our immigration policy.
Oh, I get it. So since we've been helping the victims of the hurricane by sending money to illegal immigrants so they have the help they need, we encourage everyone from North Carolina to go to Mexico and come back as an illegal immigrant. That way, we can help you help yourself.
Credits to Al Barry for that one. I remember reading about this huge wealth transfer that was happening, but I never imagined how real it would be until I started seeing people I knew actually getting ahead. Meanwhile, I was feeling left behind. And it wasn't luck. They were positioned with the right people and resources at the right time. The Life Pursuit Network gives you the exact same advantage. For less than $1 a day, you can learn the strategies that others are using to seize this massive opportunity. Don't stand on the sidelines while others succeed without you. Join us right now and be a part of this great wealth transfer that's already changing lives.
I will put my record up against anyone in terms of the work I have always done and will always do to ensure we have a secure border. When I am elected president, I will bring back that border security bill and I will sign it into law.
She's acknowledging she was in charge. My policy, my border security, my. You caught that, right?
Wow. Harrison Faulkner is literally blowing the lid off of this one here, guys. And Kamala Harris is the same woman who all of a sudden, because the numbers, the data, the reports are just so blatantly just atrocious, she's declining to accept the role, the title that has been assigned to her by Joe Biden, that she is the border czar. Why? Well, the reason is because what she's done has been so horrific for America, and she can no longer hide it.
All you need to know, though, is one number, 206. That's the percentage. 206%, the jump in illegal immigrant encounters at our southern border. People are
This is not what you need to hear. This is not the data that you want coming out just weeks before the 2024 presidential election. And this is why Kamala Harris is trying to hide. This is why she hid. This is one of the reasons. This is one of the major facts that she's trying to hide from the American people today here, folks.
Counters at our southern border. People are flowing over, and it's exploded by 206% under the watch of Biden and Kamala Harris. A new op-ed with the title, Harris's Media Blitz of Border Security, Lies and Deceit. That's a quote, a headline. Congressman Byron Donalds, Republican of Florida, he is also a Trump surrogate. What do you make of all of this?
What I make is that Kamala Harris really has nowhere to go. Her administration destroyed our southern border. They've let almost more than 10 million illegal immigrants into our country. And it didn't really have to be this way, Harris. When Kamala Harris and Joe Biden came in, they signed 94 executive orders getting rid of all of Donald Trump's border security policies. It was stupid then. It's terrible now. The results have been disastrous. The only way to fix it is by electing Donald Trump, because she's not going to change the border procedures. She's going to go back to what they did for the first 3 years of this administration. The only reason why Joe Biden did this amnesty, this amnesty shutdown over the last 6 months is simply because of the election. No other reasons. And now she's trying to run around saying she signed a Senate bill. The Senate bill was terrible. She never would have got a vote in the House of Representatives.
You know, it's interesting that you call it an amnesty shutdown, because they adjusted the numbers of the people coming across, and then they exploded in a couple of different programs to bring people in the air. And we didn't know that was north of 1.5 million until just recently.
They were flying people in on military aircraft trying to hide the number of illegal immigrants entering the country. Wow. Now, just think about the level of inside, the amount of inside coordination that had to be implemented to even allow that to kind of happen. You know what I mean? Like, this was a coordinated effort and overall deceit of the American people.
So there are even more people we don't necessarily know that much about where they might be right now. And there's no way they're vetting that many when they couldn't do it at the border. So it's like having the border in the sky.
Wow, guys. Wow. The truth is absolutely coming out, and it can no longer be hidden. 2024, Cat Williams, I don't know if you guys saw that Cat Williams interview with Club Shay Shay, and he was talking about Diddy and 50 Cent and what's his name? Steve Harvey, all of these folks and their hidden antics. Cat Williams said, 2024, the truth is coming out. The lies will no longer be kept a secret. And so far, Cat Williams' predictions coming true.
3.5 years ago, right? Kamala has already cost the typical family $29,000 with her horrible inflation and the cost of inflation. Yet she said this week, when asked the question, that she can't think of one thing she could do differently, right? So, you know what? Take a look at the video. We're going to talk about that. Take a look, not one thing. Take a look at this.
Would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind.
I stood there on the tarmac watching you check your watch.
The chaotic and U.S. evacuation from Afghanistan stunned Americans and the world and cost the lives of 13 U.S. soldiers.
Would you have done something differently?
There is not a thing that comes to mind.
More than 13,000 illegal immigrants convicted of murder have been caught at the border and then released into the United States.
An Afghan national is in custody today after being accused of plotting an election day. The suspect entered the U.S. on a special immigrant visa.
Gut-wrenching new details in the Georgia nursing student Laken Riley. The illegal immigrant suspect, who cops say committed the is a Venezuelan national who crossed the unsecured southern border back in 2022.
2 men investigators say are in the country illegally from Venezuela are charged with and the death of Jocelyn Nungaray.
A fifth illegal immigrant accused of 2 New York City police officers over the weekend showed no remorse or regret.
Would you have done something differently?
There is not a thing that comes to mind.
Only 18% say the economy is in excellent or good condition. US inflation has hit a new 40-year high, increasing by 9.1% over the financial year.
The cost of homes have spiked. Home buyers need to earn 80% more than they did in 2020 to afford a house.
Unbelievable, guys. Unfreaking real.
If you take out everybody that has any of those characteristics, then you're going to take out a lot of people, including some at this table.
That look on Joy's face is a telltale sign that she knows Dr. Phil is calling her out.
So,
do y'all need a minute?
No, that's right.
No, she's got to ask you this question.
Yeah, I got to ask you this question because though they can't diagnose anybody, from afar, somebody that they haven't examined, doctors, therapists, a lot of respected psychologists out there, really big time, big names, are saying that Donald Trump is showing signs of narcissism, which, by the way, one of the symptoms is preoccupied with the fantasies of unlimited power, success, and brilliance. And they're questioning that he has narcissistic disorder. Number one, do you think that's a mental illness, narcissism? And if so, is he fit to be president?
Well, Counselor, that's a compound question, and I object. But, people talk about narcissism, but they don't really know what it means. So I brought a list from the DSM-5 about what narcissism really is, because if I asked people to stand up and define it, they wouldn't know.
All right.
And let's just take a vote. One, has a grandiose sense of self-importance.
Check.
Check. Okay.
Next.
Two, is preoccupied with fantasies of success, power, or brilliance, which you said. Check. Okay. Three, believes that he or she is special or unique.
Check.
Can only be understood by special people. Four, requires excessive admiration.
Oh, check.
Has a sense of entitlement, which means is very thin-skinned. If you're
check.
Is interpersonally exploitive. Lacks empathy. Has the inability to stand in other people's shoes and understand.
You mean like when he makes fun of...
Wow. So Joy Behar is essentially calling Donald Trump, Joy Behar and Dr. Phil are calling Donald Trump a narcissist. And not only that, but they're actually attacking Donald Trump's daughter. Can you believe this? This is like a new level of low to attack a presidential candidate's daughter, their offspring, their child, their children. Wow. Is there no end to the Democratic desperation here? Well, folks, Kamala Harris has received devastating news from CNN, and CNN can no longer hide this anymore from the American people. In fact, we've actually heard from Harry Enton from CNN. Horrible news. This is probably the worst news that Kamala Harris could have possibly received just before the 2024 presidential election. And this could very well be perceived as basically CNN saying Donald Trump could win this election in a landslide victory in only a couple of weeks. I want you guys to listen to what CNN's Harry Enton basically uncovers and unveils about the truth behind the polls and the data that we are seeing now about Kamala Harris versus Donald Trump. And it's astounding, guys. Watch.
Eternal question, why some Democrats worry. Now, it's a trope. A lot of people will say they're always worried. But I will say, if you've been paying attention to social media or reporting on CNN, Democrats seem particularly worried now. Why? One man, as we say, has the answer. CNN's chief senior data reporter, Harry Enton, is here. So, why?
Why? What is with all of this bedwetting among Democrats? Maybe it's an eternal problem, but let's take a look here. These are, of course, the Great Lake battleground states, the states we've been focusing in on. If Kamala Harris wins these three, she most likely gets to 270 electoral votes. Take a look 3 weeks ago. Harris was ahead by 2 in Pennsylvania, 2 in Wisconsin, 3 in Michigan. Look at where we are today. The race is even tighter. even tighter than it was. Today, it's a 1-point advantage in Pennsylvania, 1 in Wisconsin, 1 in Michigan. Look, that's limited movement, but in a year in which this race has been so static, if we're talking 1-point movement, 1-point movement, 2-point movements, and we see movements in all three, this is the type of thing that, at least in the public polling, makes Democrats worried. And I think that the public polling in this case is reflected in some of that internal polling, some of that reporting that suggests that these Great Lake battleground states have certainly tightened a lot, where at this point they are way too close to call.
It is what you call a trend.
It is
when
a
you
trend.
See something like this over several states. When you compare
Now, I just want to add a little bit color here, okay, guys? 3 weeks ago, they're saying 3 weeks ago, Kamala Harris had a 2-point lead, 2-point lead, 3-point lead. We're talking about Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, right? Today, the lead, according to CNN, is 1-1-1 point lead across these 3 swing states. Now, what we've seen traditionally is that these polls they're typically not 100% accurate, in that Donald Trump is typically doing better than what these reports and polls are saying. So what this means is, number one, Donald Trump is moving ahead. This is 3 weeks ago. Kamala Harris has lost footing. She's lost ground. She's losing 1 point in Pennsylvania. She's losing 1 point from 3 weeks ago to today in Wisconsin, and she's lost 2 points in the polls in Michigan compared to 3 weeks ago compared to today. So this could very well mean that Donald Trump is actually winning at this point, since these polls typically, when you look historically, these polls they're lacking on the Donald Trump statistics. In other words, usually usually Donald Trump is about 3, maybe even 4 points higher than what the polls actually report. But even with that aside, we can clearly see that as the weeks go by, Kamala Harris's poll performance continues to get worse.
Compare this to 4 years ago. What does it look like?
Yeah, so let's take a look, and we're going to look at an average across these 3 states, right? Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, an average on October 11th. What do you see? Well, if you look 8 years ago, Hillary Clinton was way out in front in an average of these 3. She was up by 8.
And she still lost.
Joe Biden was up by an...
And she still lost. Look, Hillary Clinton was up by 8 points in 2016, and she still lost to Donald Trump back then. So keep that in mind.
Average of 7 points across these 3 Great Lake battleground states. You come today, it's just a 1-point advantage for Kamala Harris across these 3 Great Lake battleground states. So Kamala Harris, at least in the polling, is doing considerably worse than Biden or Clinton. And of course, Clinton lost in all 3 of these states, and Joe Biden barely won in all 3 of these states. So when you see Harris up by just a point across these 3, I think that this is really the type of thing that gets Democrats really to worry, John, because the simple fact is Kamala Harris is doing considerably worse than either Biden or Clinton was.
But what do you guys think about all this? Now, guys, I did a previous live stream where we see a glimpse of what a Harris presidency would look like. And I'm warning you right now, it does not look good. Make sure you watch that video right after this one. As always, thank you guys for hitting the like button, subscribing to the channel, and sharing this video. I'll see you guys next time.